Thanks for joining us today. Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northwest Arkansas is celebrating 25 years this year. I'm your host, Jen Yonda, and with me today is a special guest and big brother, Isaac Weaver. So, how long have you been a Big Brother for?
So going on 3 years now. I was going through my social media feed, and I had a post from like late 2017, and I think that we had gotten started that year with Brendan, and it's been a blast. So 3 years now of getting to know this little dude.
Tell me about him.
He is probably the nicest person I have ever met, and I know that plenty of like parents and cousins, nieces, anyone that knows a little kid is going to say they're the nicest kid ever. They're all lying, because Brendan's actually the nicest kid ever. The best way to summarize him is that my wife and I were playing a game with him where we were all like picking our superpowers and stuff. I think I had said super speed or something like that. My wife said super strength, and Brendan's superpower that he picked was he wanted to help the world. I know, it's just the most transparent glimpse into this kid's heart. Like, he's just the nicest kid ever. When we first got matched, I would go over to play basketball with him, and unprompted, he would always bring in 5 or so other kids. And I was very new to the program, so I was very rule conscious of like, can I even talk to these kids? Like, Brendan is bringing over all these kids, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm for him. Like, this is... But he always had this gaggle of kids around him, so excited to be near him, because he just gives off this energy of acceptance and love. And for the last 3 years, that's only gotten more... Intense might be the wrong word, but it's only gotten more profound in him. It's just great to see. Yeah, it's great. And I wrote down, don't say the corny, it's really the kids that teach us line, but really like that. This kid has really shown me what just love without any sort of worries about, this, I don't know this person, but we go to the gym at JBU, and he will invite people that neither of us know to shoot hoops with us. He has no preconceived notions of well, what if I seem weird to them by inviting them? He just wants to know people, and it's so cool. It's so cool to see that.
I love that. What do you guys like to do together?
So I mentioned basketball. I present him with a huge smorgasbord of choices. We live in the same town now, so coming over to my house to play video games or watch movies is now on the table. He always suggests basketball, and through that process, we both have gotten kind of better at basketball, so we're kind of growing in that ability together. But we just, basketball, he loves to come over to my house and, see my animals. I've got a dog and 2 cats that he is absolutely crazy about. He's helped me put up Christmas lights just around our house and stuff, and that's been fun. He's held the ladder. He doesn't get on my house. I need to say that for legal. But he's up for anything, but basketball is kind of his jam. And I think that going even back 3 years ago, it was on the playground surrounded by what felt like a million kids. He just loves that sort of environment. There's always new people on the court that we get to talk to, and he loves it.
How would he describe you?
On a good day, friendly. When I take him to Sonic after we play. But I would hope that he describes me as available. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me, so the first time I met you was at the Crawfish Boil.
Yes.
For Big Brothers Big Sisters, and you got up and talked about the importance of showing up time after time for Brendan and how he kind of questioned it. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so when we first got matched up, we had this kind of this process where we were setting the pace with one another. We kind of were slowly getting to know each other, kind of understand, okay, what wavelength are you on? What do you like to do? And I always wanted to say, do you have any questions? How would you like to get to know me more? And he never really dove into that. It was more, are you going to be here next week? Or are you going to, are we going to keep doing this? He probably asked some version of that question a million different ways. It was always boiling down to, am I going to keep seeing you? And I just thought that was, it kind of hurt me a little bit. I was like, man, of course, I had to keep reiterating, no, I've made plans with you. I'm going to be here. And I think that just, through no fault of his own, I think that consistency was kind of not a part of his life. I think that he's in an environment where the adults that are around him are working very hard, or circumstances change, and sometimes promises aren't necessarily fulfilled in the way that maybe he expects. So there's just this natural, he anticipates that when someone tells him, yeah, we're going to go do this, like for a while it could change, and it doesn't really happen. And I think one of the coolest points that we got to together was he stopped asking me like if I'm going to come around. It was just understood. And I think without really trying to make that my goal for him, when I realized, like, I made a plan with him, this might have been, this was a while ago, but it's been 3 years. So when I made a plan with him one night and he just goes, okay, I'll see you Thursday, I kind of like that. I'm not going to get emotional. Stop. But I can remember I dropped him off and I'm sitting in my car, and he might have done it before, but that was kind of the first moment where he didn't check, And I just kind of like sat there. He shut the door, and I just kind of thought, dude, like if we don't move anywhere past this point, we've kind of made it now.
Yeah.
Because he knows I'm locked in, and he kept asking me, what about when I'm in ninth grade? Yeah, I got you. What about 10th grade? Yeah, I got you. What about 11th? Like he did, like all of these hurdles of what about. That's no longer there. Like he just knows. My thing that I tell him now is like, dude, until you tell me to go away, and maybe not even then, I'm here. Like I'm around. You got me.
All right, talk about the time commitment. I know it can be intimidating for people when they're thinking about volunteering, and I say, all right, you got to see your little a couple of times every month, and
Sure.
you got to commit to a year.
Yeah.
What did that look like before you started, and what does that look like to you now?
So before it kind of got started, it was a little daunting because, 3 years ago, I think I had just come into my first full year at my job full time, and I was a little bit hesitant of, can I really, the last thing you want to do is underserve, right? So you're worried that the time that you can give won't be enough, right? You talk about that honeymoon phase of, is this kid even going to like me if I'm only able to see them a couple of times a month? Is that going to be enough? And I think what kind of helped me with that is that once you get started in it, and once you play a few games of Battleship in a school break room, and you learn that this little snot will cheat if you don't watch, once you get under that enough, you kind of start to just not worry about it, and you start to more look forward to every time you see them. And for me, at least, that anxiety of, am I doing enough, kind of drops away when you start asking them, like, hey, do you want to play basketball or Battleship? And then they just enthusiastically, both! And then you end up doing both. I think that initial time commitment for me was a couple times a month. Like you said, I was off-site because I didn't live in Siloam Springs at the time. So it just meant going to the school and eating lunch with them. On my lunch break, I'd go up and I'd bring a sandwich and we'd eat and we'd talk. And I'd say, how's your day going? And usually it was, so-and-so took my fidget spinner and now I'm mad. And we got to work through, well, let's talk about that, man. I haven't had my fidget spinner stolen, but I can imagine that's bad. And just, it became more of a, as you establish that relationship, you stop worrying about the time commitment. And as long as you can be consistent, I think, commit to once a month or however many times you can do it. Just be transparent and say, hey man, listen, I'm busy this week and we're gonna have to reschedule. I'll be here on this date. And you eventually prove to them that, your word is real, and that's okay. So I think just communication on their end has helped. And on my end, just to be transparent about availability, and I think that helps a lot.
Why did you decide to become a mentor?
I think that it's a combination of, I love to be around, I love the enthusiasm that little kids have and that kids have, and I didn't have any of that anymore. My first major in college was early childhood education, just because I love little kids. They're awesome. But I think secondary, I can remember that growing up I had friends that were older, and they kind of defaulted into, almost without knowing it and without me ever, even to this day, probably admitting it to their face, but they kind of defaulted into that mentor role. And there's something about someone who's not a parent that sometimes you can just be a little bit more real with, because you have to, you have to kind of keep a front going with your parents, otherwise you don't get to do things anymore. Like, you can't really come to your parents when you've messed up on a few things, because you need to make sure, you're all copacetic on their end. But with a mentor or a friend that's got a little bit more experience than you do, you can be a little bit more real with them. And I think that I didn't have the best person filling that gap in my life as a kid growing up, and I really wanted to provide something different for someone, because I know if it's not me doing my best to fill that role, someone will, and I would rather give it my best shot, knowing that I'm trying from a place of compassion and really trying to invest in someone versus, the alternative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How has mentoring impacted you?
I think that the biggest way it's impacted me was it's really shown me that quality time with someone sort of always goes over just maybe stuff and just kind of like mindless activities of like, well, I don't have to entertain him, right? We can kind of match up and talk about anything, and that can be the quality time, and that's transferred into so many other areas in my life where I always have, I have the personality type where if I've brought someone over to my house, if they have a moment of boredom, I have failed. Like, I need to always be like on.
Right.
And I think that's shown me that if you sit and listen, it's okay. That's enough usually. And it's also shown me to look for mentors in my own life who are a little bit ahead of the curve for me, because by no means do I have all things figured out at all.
Adulting's hard.
Yeah, adulting is hard. And I think that being a mentor has opened me up to asking more questions from people older than me, because I approach it with, if Brendan asks me any questions, I'm not going to look down on him for that at all. I'm going to say, like, this is someone chasing more knowledge and trying to get better at life, and that's good. And then I thought, well, why am I so nervous about asking people a little bit ahead of the curve on me questions and stuff? So that's opened me up to being more transparent about areas that I'm a little bit insecure of and that I need help in, and it builds a healthier person. I think that in a perfect world, it would just be this never-ending stream of older people teaching younger people how to do things.
That ongoing mentor train.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of my perfect world. But I'm working on getting clear channels of communication open and maintaining them with mentors in my own life now.
All right, we talked a little bit before we started recording. You started mentoring Brendan when he was a child.
Yes.
And now we're into those teen
yes.
years. How has this transition been? These awkward conversations.
Yeah. It's been interesting. I think, like I mentioned, I went from a stage in his life to where the biggest concern of the day was Bobby took my fidget spinner, and I really had to practice restraint to not hit Bobby. And I'm like, well, that's good. And now it's going, well, I have a girlfriend now. And I'm going, oh, tell me more about that. let's learn more about that and how that's
My
going.
palms are a little sweaty.
I'm like, what does this look like? I think over one weekend, and as parents can probably relate more to this than I can, but when you say that a kid grows up overnight, I can remember dropping him off one weekend and then coming back, and all of a sudden, like, a mustache has formed and earrings are in the ears, and he's somehow 5 inches taller, and I'm like, what? I saw you last week. When did this happen? I think the conversations have definitely become just a little bit more, I'm seeing him as almost a fellow young adult now. He's worried about how he comes across to girls, and he's worried. He's asking me questions like, well, he's running ideas by me like, well, what do you think I should do if I like this girl, but this other girl told me that she likes me? And I'm going, well, you're talking to girls, so you're, first of all, way ahead more than I was at your age. But we get to kind of work through stuff like that. And I think that, good gosh, I would rather him talk to me about that than other 14-year-old boys at this stage. Because that's just, I just can't imagine what's going on.
I don't look back on my teen years and think, man, I was really smart then.
Right? Yeah. That's. I don't think if anyone does, I think they're lying to themselves. I don't think anyone is smart as a teenager. So I'm happy to be a resource for, hey, maybe Snapchatting 15 different girls at a time is probably not the best move to be making right now, Chief. We can we can work through that and talk about maybe being smart about social media and, as accessible as the internet is to you, maybe certain things shouldn't be Googled and, stuff like that. I mean, it's definitely not, I don't think anyone can handle conversations like that perfectly, but I think making the effort to just be honest and to be real about, hey, I don't know enough about this. What I can tell you is intuitively, this is probably the right move that I would be making here. I think for him to have someone at least committed to those discussions with him is pretty big. So happy to imperfectly fill that role.
I like the way you framed it.
Yeah.
All right, we've got 25 littles in Siloam Springs waiting on a mentor. We've got kids not just in Siloam Springs, but Decatur, Summers,
Sure.
and Gentry. So what would you say to someone who's thinking about volunteering?
I think that if they're anything like me, they probably have this insecurity of, like, am I good enough to be a mentor, or do I have enough wisdom to offer? And I think that the wisdom part comes later. What these kids need is someone that says, hey, you are seen and cared about, and let's play Battleship. I think that after a year of that, you can start maybe passing down the wisdom from the mount. But even then, you're addressing kids who they really want consistency and they really want to be loved by men. They want someone there that has both stated and put foot behind the word that, I love you and I'm going to be here for you. I think that goes way further than someone that you don't know just passing on some wisdom, So
I think you hit the nail on the head with that, because I talk to guys all the time. That's part of my job, is getting people to volunteer.
Sure.
And I feel like guys are the most insecure. Like, you don't want me, you want someone else. You
Right.
want more to offer.
Right.
Who knows what to say, who knows what to do. And I usually tell them, do you have friends?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you can be a mentor.
Right.
If you're capable of being friends with someone, then you're capable of this role.
Yeah, exactly. I think that guys have this just imaginary John Wayne Yoda hybrid that they think is the perfect mentor that they couldn't ever be. And I think that just pushing that out of your head and saying, hey, the best I can do is commit to play basketball with this kid 2 or 3 times a month, that you are overestimating what is the need here. Like, that is going to be enough for a while. Just consistency.
I love that. All right, Isaac, thank you so much for helping doing this podcast with me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to do it.
We will launch 2 episodes a month this year, with a bonus episode in December for 25 episodes this year, all as a way to celebrate our 25th anniversary. From the history of Big Brothers, Big Sisters in Northwest Arkansas to our Dream Big program that focuses on girls, you can follow our journey on our YouTube page, Facebook, and our website, BBBSNWA.org. That's where we're going to post each new episode. In the meantime, if you have a story about Big Brothers, Big Sisters that you'd like to share with us, we want to hear how mentoring has impacted your life. Give us a call at 479-966-4366 or email us at enrollment@bbbsnwa.org.